All right, you're good to go, sir.
All right. So this area that you're seeing is a factory. It's a rundown factory, and the player is starting right here in the entryway or lobby. And one thing you need to know is that there is a dust storm or a sandstorm going on outside due to the conditions. So the player starts here, can search around, find some collectibles, but ultimately they're going to come down to this hallway and find that a sandstorm is coming into the building and blocking this direction. So they're forced to move into this room, which is blocked by, I haven't quite decided, but it's either going to be like a quicksand pit or a toxic water, something you have to get over. And then the player can grab these physics objects and throw them at crates that are going to be hanging from ceilings. They'll drop down and make a nice little stepping stone path for you to jump across. And then you can get in here to where number 4 is and turn this valve, which will close the vents to this room. So the sandstorm will not be coming in, and this area will be clear, and you can move through it. So you could just exit right through here, come through this room, search for collectibles if you want. You'll come here, and there'll be like a verbal cue from the character that you need to move this pipe because this is the direction you need to go. And you decide you need to turn the power on to use this crane to move that pipe because it's way too large for your grapnel. So you're going to come this way, find that you're blocked by another sandstorm, move into this room, which is seemingly a dead end, but the player will have some sort of hint to throw these physics objects at the walls to break them down. Some will have collectibles behind them, some will have danger behind them, and there will be one which will have a hole in the wall so the player can climb through and get to this valve, close that sandstorm, and then they can move their way downstairs, come back out here, move their way downstairs to turn the power on, which is just coming to this room and interacting with an object to speed that up. So it's gonna be like replace our fuse, which will be in that room. You just gotta search it, maybe move a box, find the fuse, put it in, start the power. And then once the power's on, you can move. You're gonna want to go all the way back to the crane. This little puddle right here is just a small little puzzle where you have to use like 2 crates to get over an electric puddle because now the power's on. You can move your way all the way back to the crate, move the pipe. It'll be like an interact, and it'll automatically animate and do it. Go in here, and there'll be trip wires. You're almost at the end. There'll just be trip wires that you can either duck under, or if there's physics objects, you can throw them to get them out of the way. And then once you're in this office area, you want to interact with the computer to try to get a file, which is the reason you were sent there in the first place. And they'll ask for a password. It'll give you a hint. You can move this object and find a password behind it, and that's the win condition, the end of that mission.
Okay. That's pretty good.
Yeah, the only concern I have is it might be just a little too long.
There's definitely some spots I would be careful of. First of all, I think your map construction is very well done. You definitely have a really good sense of detail, as well as you're using the tools you have to create your own shapes. So I think you've done a really good job on the actual map construction portion of the assignment. Still some other things you can do to be more clear. Obviously, you still have time before you
it's not
submit
complete
this.
yet.
The player path is the first thing I would.
The player path I haven't added yet. Yes.
Yeah, that's really going to sense up a lot of really good things. Also, be careful too. Like you have these little sections of hallway here, like right in between note 1 and 2.
Mm-hmm.
Right, there's just nothing going on there, and you're going to notice when you put in their player path, you're just going to see a straight arrow going from 1 to 2. And keep in mind that 10-second rule, and be careful of having those little stretches with not much going on. That's where those minor setups come in, right? Like just having some stuff in the way, the player needs to move it out or jump over it, crouch underneath something. Just some type of small minor setup, and start to build on those throughout the level. So you mentioned tripwires all the way at the end of the level. Maybe there's one there.
One or so. Okay.
So you just teach that to the player at first. Another thing I would be concerned about with, and it's sometimes I can tell with how someone's describing something, how they feel about it. You're like, all right, now you go and you do this thing, and now you have to go all the way back to the crane. and how you said it, right? It was just like, well, now I got to backtrack through the whole level again.
It is shorter though. You don't have to go all the way through it.
But think about that, right? Maybe there's a different way for you to get the player from where you want them to the crane, right? Maybe there's a window they can jump out. They smash through a window and there's a zip line and they slide down to the crane. A faster way to traverse the level in a new experience rather than backtracking, right? So try and come up with a different scenario, or if you really want them to go through the level again, what's different? Maybe they do something upstairs, it causes a fire, or the sandstorm starts again, or something else happens. So now when they're going back through the portion again, it's new, it's a different experience. So definitely be careful of having those little stretches. Also, like up by note number that 8, yeah, that hallway there. Just still, it's a good space. It's maybe a bit too long, but you can definitely adjust that once you bring it into Unity and make some measurements. But yeah, those minor setups in between there is going to just keep the player engaged and connect those major setups from one to another. But yeah, very well explained. I think your setup down there where you're knocking the crates into that acid there, another thing you could possibly reuse somewhere else.
Yeah.
Think about like any type of catwalk or something on a hinge joint where you can knock it off and then it'll fall, and now it's a walkway going up. But yeah, I think you got a really good start here. Definitely good spatial awareness, and really definitely the next thing you want to do is add in that player path. It's really going to help define the rest of the map and what the player is doing from start to finish. Do you guys have anything you noted that you want to point out? You know, this is a chance to just give constructive criticism to everybody, and definitely being able to critique others' work as well as accept work from your peers or criticism from your peers is definitely something that will help. So, anything you guys noticed that you want to point out, Anthony?
The only thing was the hallways.
The hallways, same, yeah, there's just not much going on throughout there. Yeah, just really how you're doing the detail with putting the debris and the sand piles and your other little objects. Continue to do that throughout the level, right?
Okay.
Because then once you get into Unity, it's really just going to help you construct this even further, right? So what is it that you're going to see in those hallways? What is it that's going to be interesting? Damien, you got anything?
I like the amount of like sheer mechanics there are that are really unique. I know I'm just worried that there's maybe just too much of that. And like Andrew said with the last tripwire area, maybe just introduce one or a couple to just present to the kid.
Yeah. I would see that happening.
Yeah, try and have different levels of those setups, right? Like an introductory, a spot where they can practice it, and then a spot where they can master it. And it doesn't have to be all three in your area. That could be something that evolves into the team as a whole. But right there where you have that thing, that seems like where you have the jumping over the crates at note 3, knocking them down and jumping them over. That seems like a practice section to me because you said it's also some type of liquid that they can't touch.
Yeah.
They're going to take damage. Right, so that seems like something that may be a little bit more challenging because if they mess it up, they're going to be punished and have to restart. So maybe in the hallway number 2, you just introduce, right, like introduce knocking something down and it falls, or some type of setup like that. So think smaller and then start to build on it. But other than that, I like where you're going. Kyle, you got anything you want to mention?
I didn't see any checkpoints.
Oh yeah, they're not in there yet.
That's a good point.
Maybe before you turn on the electricity, so if you fall on electricity, you don't have to restart completely over.
That's definitely a good point. Yeah, and just think about your overall flow. I like that you're showing the player this problem, right? Like it's always a good idea to show the player the problem before you just hand them the solution. So you're showing them that they need to move that pipe out of the way. They go complete something else throughout the level, and now they come back. But maybe think about how you're physically constructing the level, right? Maybe if you have the building go up and then go west rather than east, and then that staircase is right above that pipe, and they could fall out of a window and land next to it, or take some out, maybe a rope and slide down it, or a ladder, something like that. So try and just think how you can visually construct the level differently to make more sense rather than having them backtrack. And that's one good note, right, why we want to be working on the flowchart first and then the map, because once we have these mechanics flowing, now we just got to visually connect them to each other. All right, good job, man. I like where you're at.
There's the shine guy. Yeah, this should be the shine guy from over.
What?
All right, so for the start of this, I wanted to pretty much keep it to 3 mechanics, which was using gas, using water, and interacting with objects. So the first outside area you're going to start, you're going to be outside in by an abandoned gas station, like a small 2-pump gas station. You're going to get an introduction to how you would apply water throughout the level, and you're going to get an introduction how you would use gas throughout the level. There's also going to be vending machines right in front of it, and if the player interacts with it 3 times or however many times, afterwards they can heal up there maybe indefinitely. So this is right outside the tunnel entrance. Oh, I'm sorry, let me back up. So the featured asset here is a water truck that you have to escort from the start of the tunnel through the tunnel. You can use the water truck to draw water from, or the gas station to draw gas from. But in the end, you want to get this this water trailer, truck, cart, whatever. You want to get it through the tunnel and out with you. So at the very beginning, your first obstacle is a raised barrier to the tunnel. Therefore, you need to go into the control room. The control room has a turret, and the way you got to take out the turret, there's 2 stories to it. You got to sneak around, go up some stairs, and then there's a hole, and you're going to pour water onto the turret, and it'll short out the turret. Then while you're up there, there's a safe that's going to be there. It's going to have a lot of good stuff in it, but it's going to be locked. And the safe combination will be found later. Then once you go down, the barrier mainframe needs to be, it's hooked up to a generator, and you need to fill it with gas in order to start the computer. Once you start the computer, you're going to power down the barrier, and therefore you've moved past your first obstacle. The second one that you're going to encounter is the generator room, but first there's going to be a set of cars that you're going to that are going to be blocking away. You got to put gas in it and move the car. You're not going to drive the car. You're just going to it's going to move.
Press E, interact.
Right.
Rolls out of the way.
Right.
Perfect.
You're going to come across the locked valve room first, but the player's not going to be able to enter it. Therefore, the next one up would be the generator room. The player goes into the generator room. The generator room turret also has a puzzle to it. Let's see, what did I do? I don't think I did the generator turret. Whoops, I didn't do the turret. Okay. So the turret in the generator room, there's going to be some kind of mini game or some kind of interaction with the generators that is going to turn the turret off. Then once you get past the generator turret, you're going to go to the generator computer, and you're actually going to short that out with water instead of powering it up, because you're turning the power off, and the power is providing the locked door. Once the power is off, the door is no longer locked to the valve room. Then you go in, the valve room has a turret. This one is, you've got to take an alternate hallway or something, go around it, and you're going to place the gas can. You're out of its line of sight. You place the gas can on some conveniently placed oil barrels right there. You back out. If you go in front, it's going to shoot you. It's going to shoot the explosion. You'll be caught in the radius. So you back out, come back in from the room, and then the turret will go to shoot you, and it'll blow itself up with the gas can you placed. Then there's going to be a broken valve wheel. That's going to, the player, if he interacts with it, it's going to break and deal 1 damage to him. If he is in the generator room where the valve wheel was hidden and he finds it, he just goes, sees that it needs to be replaced, and replaces it. The last thing Once you're in the valve room, there's a bus that blocks the exit of the tunnel. Once you're in the valve room, you're going to apply some kind of mechanic where you're going to increase the valve pressure. The pipeline blows up and rolls the bus out of the way. And then all obstacles are cleared. You take you and your water trailer out of the tunnel into whoever's area is next. The secret room down here, this is actually in the generator room. There's going to be a fire or some kind of choice. If the player uses water, they'll notice like a crack in the wall, fire and all of that, and they'll note something about that. If they use water, it'll put the fire out and they don't get to go to the safe area. If they use gas, it'll cause an explosion and it'll knock down the wall. Then that'll take them to the secret area outside, and that's where they find the safe combination. It'll be painted on the wall or something like that. And then I have an additional puzzle if all of that doesn't keep me busy.
Got you a little wish list extra?
Yeah.
Nice. So I had a few questions, just technically how you were trying to accomplish some of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So you want that water vehicle to follow the player, or how is that gonna?
It's going to be like a checkpoint
Okay.
based system. I was thinking like how am I going to have the player move it or whatnot, but once the player clears an obstacle, they interact with it and it'll show them at a next.
Rotate.
Right.
It moves the same way how you would just.
It like follows. It would follow a track, almost
Okay.
animated.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. And then you're gonna have it be. Where is the water and the gas coming from? Are they going to be objects in the world that the player collects and then they can like use later? Is it an object with a rigid body?
Okay.
What's your plan for that?
So the plan with it was like a puzzle type element. Give the player, they can only hold one container at a time. They go and they collect the source. They take that container full of that liquid, whether it's gas or water, and they take it to whatever they need to apply it to. If the player drops it, then all of the liquid spills out, and that's a balancing mechanic, so they don't just take both gas and water.
When you say pick up, do you mean pick up with the grab-null or like collect it?
The grab-null. Pick up with the grab-null.
Picking up with the grab-null.
Yes.
Okay.
At one point I considered having it to just be literally you're collecting the liquid with the grab-null and taking it to. But that might be really hard to animate. So I decided it's just going to be a container, and I can swap out empty container for full container, and while they're walking, do a sloshing sound for the noise.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just for the sense of functionality, I would honestly just start with like cubes. Start with like gas cube, water cube. Once you have the functionality working, then change out your mesh for something different, and then just kind of go with it there and see what you can get working. But I like where that's going. Awesome. So I already can see, you got some overlapping mechanics already, right? Like Anthony had those valves in his map, so nice to see that there's some overlap there. Think about how.
The combination on the wall is the same too.
Yeah. So think about how you can add variety as well as some consistency there, and that's something that you guys can always adapt and improve to your designs as you're going forward. So I like to see that there's some overlap there. Same thing with the turrets. I like that you're making them integral to the map itself or into the experience, right? Like you have some that you have to take out in order to progress. That's what it seemed like, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I like your setup. I can show you an example of mine that's very, very close to this that I went through this the previous version of this class, and it was very similar to this. You had this cart, and you could collect different objects, and it would make either cardboard, glass, or metal. It was like a trash compactor. But it's just similar to this. So I can definitely show you some stuff I did there, and maybe you can see what you like from there and go forward. So,
Sure.
Yeah, looks good. Definitely a really great example of it doesn't matter what the map looks like. I can definitely understand your mechanics and how you're going to build on them. So I like to see that you really put a lot of effort into this. It's good stuff.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to mention anything? What?
Damien has a
He's got
really
that grin on
really
his
great
face.
one he wants to show off.
What?
He's got a really good flowchart he wants to show off next.
No, it's not. Greg's flowchart's fucking amazing. I don't know you guys. I just like how it's all designed and breaks the mold of flow charts.
Yeah, it's definitely organized, but it's not just left to right. You know, it's not about the where everything's placed. It's just how it reads and how everything is progressing on itself.
I was worried that the notes were too much.
No, it's good stuff. Because I mean, if you were just to hand this off to me without presenting like that,
Mhm.
I have to interpret this on my own. So I have to have some notes, or anyone, you know, any other designer, developer, producer, they have to have that there, so it's very clear and it's very detailed. Good
Yeah.
stuff.
What you were talking about with the water buffalo or the water trailer,
Mhm.
player start. The water buffalo or water trailer would be here, right outside both of these.
Yeah.
And then once you have cleared the cars, that's when
Mhm.
this would move forward, because that means you've cleared the barrier and the
Nice.
cars.
Is the water trailer used for anything?
Yes, you collect water from it to apply it to the puzzles throughout the level.
And how is you're gonna bring the bucket over to it, or
Yeah,
bring the object
you
in
go
that's gonna
you go
be filled?
to right. You go to
You
the
have to go all the way back to the gas station for gas.
there's going to be, that's one of
So
the
it's gonna
things, like
move
right here.
with you, right?
In the generator room, you're going to see right here, you're going to have a source of both gas and water from the generator room. So that way you're not just running all the way back to the gas station. The gas station is a source. You can run all the way back to the gas station for health, because health is going to be few and far in between in this level.
Yeah, and a lot of that too is gonna come down to what you decide for your layout, right? So a lot of that can change, and it can be, maybe you do want them to go back to the gas station. Maybe it like loops around and it comes back, you know, so it's almost like this like clover shape, to where they go out and they do something, they come back to the gas station, now they completed their objective, they refuel up, you know, and then they go out again. Almost like it's like different worlds or different opportunities are opening up based on what they're doing in their progression. But yeah, I like the overall goal. Definitely a really good example of an awesome featured asset and an awesome player goal, right? It's not about just getting to the end. It's about bringing this object with you and clearing the path for it and doing all these different setups to accomplish your overall task. So very, very well done.
Thank you.
And I definitely really like too that your times seem pretty accurate. I like that you got your estimates pretty close, and really try and stick to that too when you're starting to design everything out. So think about your spatial awareness and how much space you're taking up, and really want to try and meet some of these times that you're hitting here.
Of, desert, decaying landscape material. The first thing they have to do is they have to find a way into the building. It'd be pretty self-explanatory how to find the entrance. They would have to figure out that they need to move this basically this piece of wall to be able to crawl under. If they want to do some exploring before that, which they might want to do if they know there's hidden items in the area like any other game, they could break open this crate over to the right. They find a hidden item in there. They could try to get in from the back, even though they can't, but they might be able to think they can by jumping over this wall here to the left. Through searching, they'd be able to find a hidden item back there, but they would not be able to find a way in, so they'd have to go back to the beginning here. Once they enter in the area, if they do some exploring, they'll go to the right and they'll see that it's a dead end, but there is an item in plain view there. They would be able to go back then. There's a pile of rubble here to the left of the entryway. They'd have to search that to find that item. So going through, they would see a turret to their right, but it's actually pointing to the doorway where they would have to exit if they wanted to get through this easily. But it would kill them, so they're going to have to search, and they will find that, just like the beginning of the map, there's a piece of wall that you can move to duck under, sort of repetition, getting them to think about moving things in the landscape in the area. From there, they'd have to travel through some decaying walls that would lead them to another doorway here at the bottom that the turret's pointing at. They would either get attacked through there, or they could go forward. Following this path, they would reach a checkpoint or they could explore over here further. If they got hit by a turret, there's a health pack and everything over there. But they'd reach this checkpoint, which goes to the second building. The second building's kind of got a cargo area right here. They can search the containers, find a couple hidden items. They through the hallway. There's a hidden item in the wall, actually. And then they would go to the end of the hallway where they see a turret pointing towards the door. They would have to use their previous knowledge to look for an area to be able to duck into the wall and get through to the room without being killed. The couple would have to navigate around the turrets to find, or they could navigate around to the lever that shuts off the security system of pick them up afterwards. After that, they exit out the back door, and it would be a in-scene sort of cinematic showing that they had cleared the area. So that's pretty much how that map goes.
Okay, so definitely a good presentation. I like that you pretty clearly described what your intent is for the player. Some things you may want to make note of is be careful of how much space you're allowing the player to just roam through. I like that you have this outdoor/indoor element to your map, but right here from the player's start, you want the player to walk towards this building here, but there's nothing guiding them or allowing them to, or preventing them from getting off of this path. So you have all of the space down here that's just open and empty, and if you're going to have this much space, you're going to need some type of gameplay. Otherwise, you might as well just eliminate it from the world, because, or just eliminate it from the actual physical space the player's allowed to get to, because you're just creating yourself a lot more work. Especially here, you jump over this little setup, this small setup here. Now you walk to get this object. Now I have to walk all the way back to get back in the building. So this is your ideal path that you want players to take, but there's nothing guiding them and showing them that's the way you want them to go. Also, be careful about trying to just create a world that's on like a rectangle like this, because think about it too. Like if you want the player to start here, and now I'm going to just use like a up is north and down is south, east, west. So if the player looks south, what are they going to see? Because right now it looks like they're just going to see the edge of the world. Same thing if they look to the west and they look, is it a fence there? Is it hills? Like what is it that you're building? What is this environment? So try and include as much of that information as possible, and also remember that you're building a physical space as well as the gameplay space. So moving on to the inside element of your area, I think that you have this path planned out for the player, but if you just follow along this pathway here, you're noticing there's nothing stopping me or preventing my progress. I'm just moving along, moving along. There's really nothing. Here's a setup, and I'm moving along, moving along. So try and physically put things in the way for the player, things like this that they have to physically interact with in order for them to move forward. Also, it seems like in your level there's really not much in terms of mechanics. You just have these turrets here that I'm avoiding, but I'm not interacting with them. I'm not forced to take them out in any way. So try and think of some actual objective rather than just make it all the way to the end. Think about something the player has to accomplish or complete in order to get to this checkpoint or to make it all the way here. Try and actually come up with some type of concept of what it is they're doing. So maybe they're stacking boxes to achieve some other goal, or they're taking out the turrets to power on this doorway. Something that actually physically connects what the player's doing to the world and their objectives. Have any questions at all about any of that feedback? Does that make sense to you? Do you have any
Yeah, it made sense. Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
all right, yeah.
I'm trying to think of things.
Yeah, and think about too, maybe including some type of additional height, right? So we're in 3D space, so we have the vertical, the y-axis available to us. So think about maybe there's a way that there's more traversal available to you if you had a second floor to some of these buildings, and now the player can move up and down and traverse in a more interesting way. Same thing with your collectibles. Be careful about these little stretches like this, where The player comes into this building, they look to the right, they walk all the way down this hallway, get this object, and now they walk all the way back, right? Like, think about what's the setup in this hallway, what's going on to keep the player engaged, as well as making sure that these have some type of challenge to them, rather than just have them on the ground. Reward the player for doing some type of goal.
Okay.
All right. So we covered one map previously, so that'll be in the recording if you want to go over that. That'll definitely be something you'll be sure to take a look at. And we're going to go over another flow chart and possibly another map. So if you want to stick around and just hang out, we're just going to be going through as many of these as we can. But hopefully that gives you
Okay.
some feedback in how to move forward from here. Also be careful too with your actual map construction. Think about how you're actually going to build this level, right? You just have this rectangle here, but think about how you're physically going to construct this. Like, I like the fact that you're using these, these smaller chunks here to actually build out the walls. Try and physically build out how this level is going to be constructed inside of Unity.
Okay.